Okay, yes, good evening, everybody. So, yeah, sort of slightly late start on this one. So tonight, yeah, I'm Richard Bowser. I'm the editor and founder of Property Investor News. Many of you know me. There's some very familiar faces that are, or familiar names that I'm seeing who are attending. And thank you, as always, for your support for us at Property Investor News. This is the second webinar we've done this month in June. We've got another one planned next Monday on the auctions market, an update from Piat and Jay. So if that's your interest level, then join us next Monday night, same time. But tonight we're going to talk about title splits, and I've got Rachel Knight from titlesplit.com who's going to be presenting to you shortly. We don't have another presentation tonight. It's just going to be a very brief intro for me, which will take about 1 minute, and I'm going to hand straight over to Rachel. It's a lovely evening out there. It certainly is down here in London. So we're trying to get this done without taking too much of your evening up. Generally try and finish these at sort of 8:45, 9 o'clock at the latest. Obviously you're here to ask questions, you're here to learn, and I know that Rachel's got a lot of really good content to share with you. So that for those of you who are not familiar with Property Investor News, we launched it some 22 years ago now. That dodo bird is meant to symbolize adapting to an ever-changing environment, which is the property investing scene, and it is, and it seems to be constantly changing, and we've got to adapt. And of course the dodo bird did not adapt, it became extinct. So we launched the magazine 22 years ago. In our website archive, there's 19,000 searchable archives. There's about 250 odd videos. There's dozens and dozens of webinars that we've been doing now for about the last 10 or 11 years. So there's an awful lot of digital content up there, and obviously the article archive is searchable. £9.95 a month is the cost for those of you who are not subscribers. And yeah, so there's an offer that if you subscribe online, I'll put up a QR code in a second, and you'll get that, and you'll get sent the latest June magazine and a free book on property development. So that's the offer for tonight, and that's all I'm going to say before I hand over to Rachel, and Rachel will tell you all about how to use title splits to enhance your property portfolio.
I certainly will. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? I think, Richard, you're going to give me presentation mode. Yeah. Yes, I can show my screen. So now I'm going to share some slides with you in a minute. But at the moment you might see something else. But I'm like Richard. I'm in Derbyshire today, and the weather is beautiful outside. And I don't know about anyone else, but you can't beat a bit of greenery, can you? And that's why I live in lovely Derbyshire. So anyway, it's lovely to meet you all, even though it is on a webinar. And I'm going to tell you why this is. You know, when you were just talking about being current and staying current and the dodo disappearing, yes. This is the hottest, newest, oldest strategy ever. Right, and I mean this because I'm going to say title splitting has been around since the 17th century. However, it has changed rather a lot since then, and most property investors do not title split blocks when they keep them. So as I know, because Richard and I have had lots of conversations about landlords, and I used to be a director of a landlords association, landlords do not split their blocks because they don't know how much money is in it. And now I think you can see my first slide on the screen. So that means systems are go. Okay, so I've disappeared, but I am still here. So let me tell you a little bit about why this strategy in particular is so exciting for us property people. Right, so I'm going to call it, and I do call it, and I should say a little bit about me, because you're like, who is she? Where does she come from? Never heard of her. Or if you have seen us on Facebook, we might have stalked you. I apologize. That's my marketing team. But I literally started investing in property in 2005. So I have been around the block a bit on this and had single lets. And then in 2015, I got educated and decided I was going to do property for my main income. And I got out of my day job in 2015. In 2017, I discovered that the strategy I wanted to do, because there's all these amazing strategies out there, and the strategy I wanted to do, the strategy that I want to spend my time on, because I'm not being funny, I'm getting on a bit and I'm a bit long in the tooth, and I'm greedy, and I put equity and capital letters there because I wanted equity and I wanted cash flow for a future retirement date to be determined. Okay, although at that time I thought it was 55. I'm there now and I can't imagine retiring because I love what I do. However, it's nice to have the option, isn't it? So I wanted equity and I wanted cash flow, and that is why I decided to title split. Now I'm closing the box that shows any chat or anything. It's not because I'm ignoring your questions, and towards the end, there will be chance to ask questions, and I know Richard's making that available to you, so we've got some time. So hold on to your questions, write them down, and ask me them later. Okay, so let me just move to the next slide. So what is title splitting? So for anybody who doesn't know, we're going to talk particularly about blocks today, but we are going to touch on commercial property, and we are talking about title splitting land as well. So I want you to think about what I'm talking about today applies to land, it applies to blocks of apartments, and it applies to commercial property, and it applies to mixed use property. Now, when I talk about capital growth, the way we get growth out of a commercial property is, or a capital uplift in a commercial property, is very different because we know that they're commercial valuations. And I will talk a little bit about that today as well. Okay, so I'm going to say though, what we've all believed it to be is about the legal bit. So title splitting is a process in which you or me, property developer or inverted commas landlord, because I'm a landlord, acquires a single unit of property and physically separates it into multiple units of property. In all instances, the intention is to split the property using the legal process in the geographical location at a time most profitable to the developer or landlord. And here's the news, guys. It's not most profitable to do it when you sell, unless you're selling straight off plan, right? If you plan to keep it for cash flow, then you need to title split it early. Otherwise, you are leaving a lot of profit in your deal, and I will show you why as we go through this presentation. So oh, it's gone to the next slide. I was being a little bit eager if it jumps a slide. So we're going to talk today particularly about unsplit blocks of apartments, okay? Because this is the biggest low-hanging fruit in the property sector today for landlords and developers alike. Why? Because I don't need planning to make it happen, and I don't need permitted development to make it happen. And I mean that sincerely. We can go and create user class MA, from class C to user class MA, commercial property, and turn it into apartments, right? However, I still have to go through a process of creating it. This unsplit blocks of apartments is low-hanging fruit because it already exists, and we do not have to get planning, and we do not have to get permitted development. It just has to exist today, okay? So here, excuse me, I have got a drink of water, so I might have a little slurp of that now. It is because the weather's hot. So what is an unsplit block? It's called a multi-unit freehold block. And for those on here who are HMO developers, and there may be plenty of you on here who are HMO developers, I am going to tell you now, they are valued in exactly the same way as a sui generis HMO. I will come to that in a little bit more detail afterwards. Okay, and I have got a free offer of our masterclass where I go into how those, at the end of this, where I go into how those are valued in a bit more detail, because we haven't got that much time tonight. We're sort of limited for time. So the building is legally all on one freehold. So you may be a landlord who owns one of these, or you may be, after this, a property developer or a budding landlord who wants to own these, because this is where the money is. Each apartment pays council tax. And that's important because that means there's a good argument for permitted use, even if it hasn't had planning in some instances. Okay, so depending on what's happening, if it's been valued for council tax and it's individual apartments and they meet the space requirements, because that's my next thing, the minimum space requirements prior to 2021 was 30 square meters. Now, and we're going to say this to you, those properties with apartments of 30 square meters or over are individually mortgageable as we speak today in June 2024. But if they were developed after after 2021 or during 2021, the minimum space requirement became 37 square meters. This is important for a one-bedroomed apartment with a shower room. If it had a bathroom, it had to be 39 square meters. So these are little things that are really important if you go and start looking at these blocks. Studios are not flats, no matter what the estate agent says on the details. So when we're talking about flats, we're talking about individually mortgageable, title split, saleable units. If it's 23 square meters and it's a studio, you cannot sell it to an end user. And I mean yours and my kids when they go to get their first home. That person leaving uni and getting their first place, they have to buy, if they're going to get a mortgage on something, it has to meet the minimum space requirements, right? That's really important point to make. So I'm going to bust some myths now. So this is what you will have been told. And you may have tried to title split a block and gone round and round in circles because nobody can help you. In fact, one of my guys in my team tonight has literally just messaged me about somebody trying to get the details of one of our mortgage brokers today because his client cannot get a title split done. And this is the sort of thing we deal with all the time because the mortgage brokers a lot of the time don't understand what products they should be doing and how to get the mortgage. The solicitor does not know how to split the title. Now you may think that's crazy, but here's the thing, solicitors are not trained to split titles, right? That may sound crazy, but this is a fact. If you go onto our website, there's actually a solicitor on there who's telling you how he learned it from us. And it's crazy really that this is in this day and age the case, but it is how it is. So it's not just about the title deeds, right? There's a lot more to title splitting than that piece of legal work that's the final icing on the cake, if you like. It's not a decision made by the land registry. The land registry will ask for the documentation to be correct, but they will not make a decision. I hope there's nobody on here from the land registry, and it's not a disrespectful thing if I say this, but it's a box ticking exercise. If you have done the processes correctly and adequately, which many solicitors don't know how to do, then you can title split a block. If you have not, it will be rejected, but it's not a decision they make. If you tick the boxes, it goes through. All you need is a solicitor. This is something that my clients, because we're a training company, and we have devised processes that we're teaching solicitors to enable landlords or people who are buying blocks to split them even on purchase. And let me tell you now, you don't just need a solicitor. My clients howl madly when they hear that because that's what they were told until they understood better. The process is identical for commercial and residential property. This is important to understand that because if you learn to title split residential property, you are going to be able to title split commercial property. They are valued in different ways, but you are going to be able to add value to both by title splitting. Use of the property is not relevant, so the land register, even that's irrelevant. You can title split vertically or horizontally. There is a lot of stuff out there that says you cannot split both ways, but my latest title split that I'm doing, just so you know, is a church that's been turned into 2 bungalows. I'm going to say apartments in inverted commas because that particular project is going to be side by side, but they are going to have shared areas in the outside space. Okay, so what I'm going to say, they are going to be split right down the middle. So this is, if you hear this rumor that you can't do that, you can't. This is another one. You can't split a block on purchase. Yes, you can. We do. We show our clients how to do that, but more importantly, we show solicitors how to do that. The next one, you do not have to wait for the leasehold to be registered at the land registry to get funding. This is a myth that is created sometimes by bridging brokers, right? Again, apologies if you are a bridging broker. This is not to offend you, but if you are a mortgage broker and you're on this call, you will know and you will have come across people who have been told that they can have a GDV, 100% of GDV loan at bridging stage, and then they can get the value back out when they title split and go to refinance onto individual buy-to-let mortgages. These are not, some of this is not true. The bridging company makes its money out of the big loan up front, and you pick up the pieces as the property investor when you can't get off the bridge. And by the way, I do not advocate my clients go into these bridges at all. It is dangerous, it is scary, and honestly, write that down. You don't have to get a big bridging mortgage to get one of these properties, okay? And you do not need planning or permitted development, right? So in some instances you do, and some instances you don't, but what I am going to tell you, if you buy a block that's existing already, you do not need planning or permitted development. This is low-hanging fruit. So this is what I want to show you about what I am after and what you need to be after to really grow your portfolio. If you're like me and you didn't do it when you were 21, and I didn't do it when I was 21, I bought my first investment properties, not homes, obviously. I had my first home mortgage when I was 18, but they was the days, weren't they? I'm on about investment properties. I didn't do it till my 30s, but if you're like me and you're a bit long in the tooth and you're a bit older, this is a great way to force capital growth, right? Now, I love it because I don't care what anybody says. You may invest in Bitcoin, you may have money in the stock market. For me, the best asset class in England and Wales today is property. It grows, and this is the growth line, not my numbers. These are the numbers from the land registry between 1992 and 2022. So it went from 52 to 270,000. That bit in the middle where it dropped was 2008. And some of us older ones will remember when the sky fell down. Not really in 2008. That was sarcastic. I'm from Yorkshire. We say things sometimes a little bit tongue in cheek. So the sky didn't fall down at all. And we're now hearing, I think in January 2024, it had dropped, if you look at my writing on the left, to 263,700. That was from Zoopla's house price index. Now, that is, they're now saying this massive, scary, massive drop that was in the headlines when Liz Truss did it, it was going to fall down and everything was going to collapse. 3%. 3% was all the capital has dropped across the UK. It is nothing, and we're starting to see it stabilising. So we all know, those of us who've been around a long time, that capital will continue to grow. And ask anyone who started buying the portfolio in the 90s how much their properties are now worth in 2024. Okay, so it grew 400.73% since 1992 over 32 years. I think that's pretty good growth. And it's also something that I will be happy to leave to my children, and it will continue to grow. Okay, so now back to this block, which is actually one of mine. It's not one that I did 50 years ago. It's one that I did in 2023. Okay, so unsplit blocks, what we mean is we're going to buy a freehold property that has flats in it already, okay? And then we are going to title split them. Now, in this instance, this one's in Nottingham's Article 4, and they won't let you have new apartment blocks in Nottingham if they don't exist already in what they want as family houses. But I call it messing with the council's head. I'm hoping there's no councillors on here tonight. But in Nottingham's Article 4, this is 3 two-bed flats. That's a 2-bed HMO, 2-bed HMO, 2-bed HMO. Yes, that is a 6-bed HMO if you want it to be. However, I rent it to families. And these, although in Nottingham this was 4 pokey little 1-beds, I turned them into 3 spacious 2-beds. That was that made me more money, but in that area, but also it met the council's need for family housing. And actually, I don't rent it out as HMOs because I don't want HMOs. I personally want nice, easy stuff. I rent it out as individual flats to families, and each family has a child that lives in those flats. However, let's go back to apartment blocks, HMO blocks, commercial blocks, mixed use property. If you've got a SAS and you want to get the bottom of a shop, the commercial unit, into your SAS and keep the flats in your portfolio, I'll show you one of those later. Scarily amazing. Okay, this is the strategy you need. And land opportunities, and that's freehold from freehold rather than freehold, leasehold from freehold, if that makes sense. Okay, so we can create 2 freeholds or more. So let's carry on. So I want to ask the people in here, I can't see what you're saying. Sometimes I have a chat box, but I don't think there is a chat box. Let me just check. I've shut that. I'm not going to look there, but I'm going to ask you to take a guess at how many apartment blocks are unsplit in London, because I have posted on Facebook about this, and a developer said to me, there's no unsplit apartment blocks in London. Now I'm going to tell you there is, and I am going to tell you, I checked this number literally about 2 months ago because I was going to the Property Investor Show in London, okay? And this is what I found. There are 55,796 unsplit blocks in London. Now, obviously, we know, you know, I know that those blocks are a lot owned by big conglomerates. Some will be on housing associations, yada, 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 and the list goes on. So that's a lot of blocks, and a lot of them are untouchable for you and I, for normal folks. But let me tell you, there are 20, oh, I didn't actually have it on there. I thought I got that on the next slide. There are 20,000+ of these blocks owned by private landlords in their own name. Now, for me, that means, yes, some of those are, I don't know, the Al Fayeds, for example, they don't even own it in a company, they bought it 500 years ago. I don't know, using an example. But let's be honest, in there are thousands of landlords who are paying Section 24 tax, right? And this is an opportunity for you. And these exist in every city in the UK. In Nottingham, where I invest, there are 1,354 landlords who've got blocks in their own name. So these numbers exist everywhere. So now I just want to talk to you quickly about commercial and mixed use here, because there is something where we can go and say the building on the left is a building that is not apartments already. If it's a user class E, then under user class we can convert to user class MA, and we can, under permitted development, create apartments. But that is not the lowest hanging fruit. That is one way of doing things, right? However, at the end of that, if you don't want to sell all those flats, you do need to know how to split them into individual units because of the capital uplift it's going to give you, right? The other one on the right-hand side, this one on the right-hand side is actually a shop at the bottom that's not rented at this time, and it was offices above. And that also, in many instances, can be done under permitted development, or if it is flats above, it exists already. Okay, so there's different options for that. In all of these instances, these properties, the commercial elements of these properties can be held in your SAS, or they can be held in your PropCo. Okay, now, who are we? We're a training company, and what I started doing title split box in 2017. That's me at the front of the room. And this gentleman on the right, he does training with me. Now, what's really important about this, right, is that in 2017, when I started doing this training, when I started doing these unsplit blocks, I could not find the power team to help me. I couldn't find the solicitors. Shawbrook were the lender at that time on a block mortgage, and they could not understand why I wanted to title split it, because they would loan me the money anyway. Here's the point. I wanted to title split it because 5 years later, I put those on individual buy-to-let mortgages, and I brought my interest rates down by 2%. Even at that time, that was 2022. Okay, so 2017 to 2022, I went from commercial mortgage to individual buy-to-let mortgage, or even better, I can do that right at the beginning. But I can do that because I've title split them. And those properties that I bought in 2017 have grown now. 30% on day one was the capital growth. I'll show you how that works in a minute. And they've now grown by a further 38%. So that's 68% capital growth from day one because I title split them. It's sort of crazy, but it's the truth. So here's the thing about title splitting and why it works. You can build a HMO like cash flow because we get 68% more cash flow if we turn one house into 2 flats, right? 68% more cash flow. You can also do 2-bed flats as HMOs in Article 4 areas, but that is just a little pièce de résistance, okay? You will massively grow your capital by title splitting MUFBs, HMOs and houses. There's no doubt about it. And the thing is, I'll show you how in a minute, and title splitting is the perfect strategy for pensions, SAS. I can't talk about SIP because it's regulated, but it's in there, quick blink, okay? But SAS definitely, okay? Freehold and leasehold, because I need to make this point, you cannot put residential property in a SAS. You have to put commercial property only in a SAS. So you have to title split off the commercial element, else you can't put it in a SAS. Okay, freehold, leasehold, buy one property and create multiple incomes, and buy one property and create multiple HMOs, okay? And the perfect strategy for your long-term income and your legacy. Another way you can create these, you can create them from user class MA, and we've talked about that, but also old HMOs that are really shabby. If the area is saturated with HMOs, the one thing I can tell you is when those people upgrade, they want flats. And in those areas where they haven't got Article 4, they're often, everybody's doing HMOs and they're getting saturated, you can switch your strategy to flats, and then you have the choice of renting by room for 2 beds or by apartment for families, okay? So this is great. Now, great news when you are ready. You're going to be stepping up to capital growth and cash flow. It's in England and Wales because it's a different system in Scotland, okay? On average, we get 20 to 35% higher valuation at refinance with a split value. I'm going to show you how in a minute. And sorry about the percentage, because that's not 2. And we can now show you the perfect stage to title split to make the biggest profit, okay? So back to the same building, because that's what we do. We come back and talk about it again, but in a different way. This property was purchased in January 2000. We actually completed on it in Feb 2023. On the day I bought it, I bought it for 255, having had a 2-year option on it. So I bought it direct to vendor, okay? The rent per annum today was gone up a bit now, but on the day I bought it last year, because we put the rents up every year, and the day I bought it last year, it was £32,400, and the yield in the area was 9%, okay? This is in Nottingham. So the rent multiplier used by the RICS surveyor, if I kept this on a commercial mortgage, and how you work that out is you take the 100 and you divide it by the yield in the area, which is 9. So 100% divided by 9%, which equals 11.11. 11.11 times the annual rent equals 359,964. Okay, that's the commercial val. That's the valuation you as a landlord will have if you keep that and it's an unsplit block. Now, if you are a landlord who has blocks, unfortunately, if you're selling them to me, you're going to have to sell me them at that lower value. And here is the split value, right? The split value is 155,000 a flat. So 155 times 3 equals 465. So the split value is 465 and the unsplit value, I'll go back, is 359,964. So for the mathematicians amongst you, that is just over £105,000 difference. That is a lot of money right? That you as a landlord, if you're keeping all the flats, which I am here, the 3 flats, the state plans are on the left, okay? These 3 flats I am keeping, and that is the value, okay? So I'm talking about, it's a comparable valuation, what surveyors call it, but in the property industry, a lot of you might call it bricks and mortar valuation. That's the one. And this one here that I go back to, that is the commercial valuation here. And that is based on rent and yield, and it's the same way that commercial HMOs are valued, okay? Now, here's another shocker. Commercial HMOs, sui generis, can go backwards in value, and they are, because as interest rates rise, which has happened recently, as we all know, commercial yields go up and values come down. Fact of life, okay? So we've now shown you the 105 difference there. Now let's look at this on this little silly looking pyramid that I've done here that says I purchased it for 255 in February 2023. Now the scary thing is it still wasn't on the land registry a year later. It is now, because that takes time, but we show you how to navigate that process. We added value through refurbishment. So we refurbished the apartments, new kitchens, new bathrooms, extra soundproofing, things like that to get them up to current standards. Then we got them valued at 35996 floor, unsplit. So I wouldn't have done that deal because I'd have only got 4.33%. In other words, the deal did not work if that's all I got. But by adding the extra value, which was from that, the extra 105,000, which is the title split value, that added another 29.18% capital. Unsplit, 359,964, 4.33% capital uplift. If you're looking for these blocks on the market, they're not going to work. And by the way, I did buy this at market value, but if he'd have put it on the market, this landlord, he wanted 250. I gave him 5 grand extra to wait 2 years, right? But the title split value 465. Okay, so you understand that, I'm sure. Now, would you like the choice of the best valuation on your project at the time? Because I had one round the corner that I title split, but the commercial valuation was actually higher. And this was in 2020, and I went with a commercial mortgage because you can choose commercial or residential. Should I say commercial or buy-to-let? Not residential, but commercial or buy-to-let mortgages on these properties if they are split correctly with the correct processes. And they do, literally when I go to refinance them, I put them on buy-to-let mortgages because that's the way I get the most capital. Now, this is how you build a portfolio of these, because the difference is they're single lets on, let's call it on drugs. I think we'll say single lets on drugs. They're going faster. They're, you know, it's a Ferrari of single lets. We are getting one property. We're creating 4 units, separate units, 4 separate titles, and the valuation. This is a real one. This is the one that I did in 2000. Another one that I did in 2020. 500,000 was the day of valuation. Cash flow 19330. So this was my cash flow in Nottingham. I'm going to say, depending on your cash flow in your area, we know interest rates have gone up a little bit. And by the way, massive benefit here. If I can finance it on a buy-to-let mortgage, my interest rate is going to be 2% lower than it is if I get commercial mortgage at the moment. Okay, so this is it. In year 1, we buy 1 unit, cash flow per month 1,930. In year 2, we buy 2 units. That's 8 flats. 12 units in total we've now got in our portfolio, worth £1 million extra, so 1.5 million, 5,970, and so on, till we get to the number that matters to us. So if you are a couple, for example, looking to get 5,000 cash flow a month in retirement, it is 3 blocks. So 3 blocks will get you that number, okay? This is why I love the strategy, because 3 blocks, 3 lots of work will get me 12 apartments. Or, you know, if you do a 6 apartment block, you get there quicker. So we can have 2 blocks to get us to 6. Do you see what I mean? So this is how we do it. Okay, so this is, I do commercial property as well. So this is a commercial property that we bought a year ago. and this is called a CMO. So this was in August. Do you know what? I go, we didn't do much last year, but actually this is an asset management project, this one. So we bought this property in August 2023, and this one was bought in our SAS, and it was cash, right? And this property here, this is something really interesting. This property was £875,000. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. But let me tell you what happened, right? Is this property in 2003, 20 years before, had been sold for £255,000. It had gone up by 20,000 in 20 years. It's beautiful property. It has 7 commercial tenants. We have a great big restaurant across the front. Somebody once came on one of these webinars somewhere and said, I live near there. So they recognised it because it's a very distinctive building, and it's got 6 other tenants that are offices. It goes right back the building. It's part of an old hospital. But here's the thing, it's surrounded by affluent houses. It's the only commercial property in the area, okay, but it works as offices. But here's the thing, what else would it work at? Well, it's surrounded by affluent houses and apartments. So I could turn this into resi. I wouldn't, because it's great commercial cash flow and it can sit in the SAS. But here's the thing, right, that we can title split this any way we like. The title split we're doing on this one at the moment, we've not splitting it to sell because we're keeping it in the portfolio and we haven't got a mortgage on it. But this property here, by carving it up into smaller units, if the restaurant decided to leave, we'd have lots of smaller units. We get bigger cost per square foot on a smaller unit than we do on a bigger unit. So that's how we add value through commercial. And on this one, we're sorting out the utilities, which were in a complete, we knew they were in a mess. We're experienced, we knew they were in a mess, but we're asset managing it so that all the people take on their own FRI leases and actually pay their own bills, because the old landlord was paying bills. I think the old landlord was feeling a lot of pain, particularly if they had a mortgage on it, okay? So that's title splitting commercial. And we can, if we wanted to, physically split this. Now, I am now going to give you an example. And I know that Richard wants me to talk about examples for the magazine, which we will do in the future. So I'm going to talk about this. This is not the actual building, because it is not my right to show you one of my clients' buildings without their say so. But I'm going to tell you how this one went down. It's a landlord who's owned a block for many years. This is not somebody buying a block. This is a landlord who's owned a block for many years. Now, the people who are buying the block, I'm going to say you will get 25 to 35% capital uplift, right? And in this instance, the block is 5 commercial on the ground floor, 4 fully let and recently refurbished residential apartments on the first floor, and planning for 3 further apartments on the second floor. Now, the bank had just come along, commercial bank, inverted commas, and valued, because the 3 final apartments hadn't been done, and on a rent and yield valuation based on current rents, the 5 commercial units were fully let and the 4 flats were fully let. They valued it at £750,000. Write that number down, because you need to remember it. So, and the other apartments at the top had not been built. So the person was offered a 70% commercial mortgage, and that was £525,000. You can work that out on your calculator if you wish, right? And that was on a 7.5% fixed rate of 5 years. So the mortgage cost, so if I do 525, and you know that, I love doing it on my calculator because I'm visual. So 525 times by 7.5%, right? That's 39,000 a year for 5 years. That's 196,875. So I've done it on my calculator at the same time, because it's how my brain works, right? Commercial units were included. No opportunity to pull the money out in 5-year period, okay, unless you paid all the fees. But also banks don't like you doing that. And if you start doing stuff like that, you get put on a special list called the Hunter list, which means you might not get mortgages. So be careful about that. So that's what he brought to me. Now, I got one of my lovely marketing people to do me this little greenhouse here. So we've got 5 commercial on the bottom, 3 residential apartments on the first floor, and 3 just to be made that are going sort of half into the roof with a mansard, right? Okay, now, each apartment individually on the first floor is valued at 175. This is what my client told me when we were doing this deal together. 175, right? So that 175 each times by, and you can get your calculator out, 175 times by 4. This is funny. It's like one of them things that you get that's not real world, but it comes to £700,000. Now remember, he's just been offered a 750 for the whole building, and now it's 700,000 for title splitting off 4 apartments, right? 700,000 times by 75% mortgage, high leverage, but hear me out here, 525, exactly the same money from the bank, but he's only financed 4 flats, right? Now, he's got the money into his company here, right? And he's going to use, he had a bit of a mortgage to pay off, but he's going to use some of that money to help him develop the 3 at the top. He needed a bit more money from elsewhere, and he didn't now have a charge. He's got a charge on this property. No, he hasn't got a charge on this property. Actually, he hasn't got a charge on this property. So he takes 100 out of his SAS who help him with this to help him develop here, because they're going to get first charge on this building because his charge is somewhere else. Okay. Now, each commercial unit is 100 each, right? And then when he does the final 3 flats, he's now done 7 flats at 175, and you can have this up yourself. 175 times 7 equals 1225, plus 5 commercial at 500, that's 1725. So he was just about to go into the mortgage on that 750, and I said, whatever you do not sign that paperwork, and stopped him do it. So he has got to this 1725 million GDV, right? Okay, this is crazy numbers. So what he did then is he had some excess profit in this company. He didn't do anything with the commercial at this stage. Or the other point he could have done is he actually could have sold 2 into his SAS over here in year 1, right? So what he's done is he's got rid of these, right? And he's refinanced these, not sold them, he's refinanced these, and he's done them as individual buy-to-let apartments. He's then got these 5 properties here, but he's only got 200,000 in his SAS. So he takes two and sells them to the SAS. They've got to be at market value, right? And in his buy-to-let company, he's now got 4 apartments over here, right? Now, they're worth 700,000. Stage 2, after he's done the other apartments, he moves all of those into buy-to-let company. He's now got 7 in the buy-to-let company, and we can show you exactly how to get the finance on this, right? And then over here on the left, all he's got left, that actually we should have taken them out, but all those apartments are now gone, and he's had some excess profit in this company, so he hasn't paid anything to his SAS for 3 years, so he pays 200,000 into his SAS. Let's hope the Labour government keep that. Let us keep that 60,000 a year into his pension. So he puts 200,000 into his SAS, and he buys 2 more commercial into his SAS. Do you see what's happening here, right? And that saves him 56,000 in corporation tax in this green company in the middle. Are you seeing how this can work? Don't worry if you haven't got a SAS. This deal stacks up every day of the week. Now, what we were showing is that this particular landlord, right, had a block value of 775. His refurb cost for his extra 3 flats is 200, and now he's got a valuation here of 1.725 just for the flats. So that's 76% on the 750k was offered. That is a huge capital uplift. I loved it. The client brought me that deal, and I was like, oh my God, you already own this. If you get this wrong, you're going to leave £1 million in that deal for the next 5 years. How many of those 20,000 landlords in London owning blocks in their own name have left all that money in their deal for years and years and years? And the great thing is, if you're one of those landlords, then you should be educated to do this. If you're if you want to buy from those landlords, then we can show you exactly how to do that. We can actually help both groups. My guess is that the traditional landlords won't want to pay for training, but we were talking £1 million there in one block, and that was not in London. It was actually in Wales. Okay, so I've now got, we have a masterclass. This QR code is on the screen, and this QR code will stay on the screen, but I do have to say, we only offer it, the masterclass is normally £97. If you scan it, you can book it for free. So that's it. And now we're over to Richard.
Thank you, Rachel. That was enlightening.
Scary, isn't it? Money, isn't it?
Yeah, that was very interesting. As I consistently say, it's all about the numbers and yeah, financial engineering. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple of questions that have been put in, so let's okay, so this is from Andrew saying, is there any way to speed up updates to title registrations at HM Land Registry?
Yes, the way we do it, and we've just had to do it because actually the one that I bought in February last year, we couldn't believe it because we didn't use bank finance to buy it, so we didn't use bank finance, so we didn't have to go and ask for permission from the bank for anything, so we did it all. And then we went to actually put bank finance on 2 of the 3 flats in, when did we start the process? The mortgage is just about to complete, but it was about, probably about 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. And that was a year and 2 months later, it still wasn't on the land registry. But when you're financing, you've got your back against the wall, you can get it expedited. But it can only be, I'd done the title split when I bought it. So it can only be expedited if it's been done properly. I've heard horrific examples of where title split documents have not been submitted correctly. Somebody's at the end of a bridge, right? Not my clients, because I really don't recommend bridging. If you have to do bridging, you have to have a clear exit. You have to have a clear exit. I don't particularly like bridging, but I have used it myself when my exit is clear. So I would say you've got to have all the things in place properly, but you can get it expedited. And I think that'll answer Andrew's question.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel, what's the cost of that?
The masterclass is normally £97, but we're giving it for free to the people on here tonight.
Okay, so those people that have made the effort and are on this tonight,
yeah,
you've got an opportunity to spend another 2 hours. Is that right, Rachel? It's 2 hours?
A little bit of this stuff because we go into it in a little bit more detail, but we look at different deals and we look more into the finance stuff. And yeah, I mean, just do it because why not? It's free. And
exactly.
You know, actually, what I will say is if you then have a deal, if you are interested in taking that further, you can then book a call with one of my coaches and they'll talk through, you know, whether this program's right for you. Because what I'm going to say is we do training, but we don't offer it to everyone. It's not right for a lot of people. This is not for newbies. I'm going to say that this is for existing, experienced investors. It is not for people who ask the question, what's a HMO? Do you know what I mean? It's for people who have been doing property. Perhaps their journey is not going fast enough. They want to get to the cash flow and their equity quicker. Perhaps they've got cash flow already, but they want to now build their equity position. I don't know. All different.
Okay. Two questions. I've got one from Charles here. And he says, how do you know you'll get planning permission for splitting into flats before purchasing?
Well, what I've actually, was that Charlie, did you say?
Charles.
So what I've said is you're going to go and find low-hanging fruit, which is unsplit blocks, which don't need planning permission. So unsplit blocks that already exist don't need planning permission, unless you want to change them materially. So for example, I wanted to make 4 into 3. It was Article 4, I had to get planning. But if you buy a block and don't change it, I don't mean internal layout changes. You've probably got to do the buy, refurbish, refinance thing. But if you don't change the walls, where the walls are going to be, you can split on purchase and you don't have to. If they exist already, you don't have to get planning. If you do get planning, that's what we teach you, what all the things to look for if you are going to go through that planning process. But here's the thing. if this low hanging fruit that I'm talking about, this strategy is becoming more mainstream. And in a few years, everybody is going to be looking for these blocks. So if you get in early, you'll go and find the blocks that already exist that don't need planning.
And obviously maybe Charles wasn't on the webinar early, and he missed your commentary and a slide about the ones that are applicable in terms of the room sizes.
But he can catch that on the masterclass. So if he comes on the masterclass, he will pick that up.
Okay. So as always with these
when you
things,
manage to scan the code, pop in the box if you haven't managed to scan the code, and we might be able to get it back up. Because it's on my presentation, Richard, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll send out the after tomorrow. People will get a follow-up email, and we'll put the QR code. We'll be able to extract that, or maybe we should be able to extract that from, and then we'll put that in the link with the email that'll go out to everyone tomorrow. Got another question. Let's just use the question box, guys. If you've got anything that you want clarification on, how will the new leasehold changes, obviously with the Act, how will this impact title splits?
Answer to your question is, so we've been training the new leasehold since 2020 when we started running these training courses. And so all of our clients have been doing 990-year leases. So as a landlord, so this is the important thing that I think landlords need to know about, and property people need to know about. There is no value in the freehold anymore. The days of you being able to charge ground rents are gone. So new flats, and these are all things that are in the Act, the ground rent is a peppercorn. I'll be writing about this over the coming months and putting it on my YouTube channel, because I want people to understand not just what's happened with the Leasehold Reform Act, but also what is going to likely happen if we get a Labour government, if in inverted commas, right? So, because they have said they will abolish leasehold. No, they won't abolish leasehold, because you cannot get rid of the the shared areas in buildings. So for landlords, if you own freeholds now and not leaseholds, so you bought freeholds for 5,000 at auction and you've been getting the ground rents and the service charges and making money out of that, watch out. I'm going to say watch out, that will affect you. For those who are doing what we advocate, which is buying and adding value to the leasehold elements, then you are going to make a lot of money, right? There's a massive opportunity. It's not going to affect you. The reason that leaseholds the way they were is because in the 17th, 18th century, wealthy landowners created the leasehold system to pass on generational wealth, because even though they sold off the leasehold element, the flat, the property, the cottage, whatever it was, they would keep the freehold, and then after every 90 years, which is every generation really, isn't it? Every generation, the leaseholder would have to go back to the freeholder, and they would have to pay, I don't know, these days it might be £38,000 to extend the lease. Now, every one of those leases, when they get extended now, is going to go to 990 years. That has gone. The opportunity to make that money has gone, right? Wouldn't surprise me if Labour, and I'll tell you this now, would not, and you'll hear me saying this if you come on my YouTube channel. I'm just gonna get my YouTube, got a new YouTube lady started, and I literally want to record this for the YouTube channel, is what I think is going to happen is Labour will make freehold rents, ground rents, a peppercorn on everything. They might not be able to do it day one, right? And the other thing that's coming down the line is that service charges will be the charges, not what you want it to be to make a lot of money out of the leaseholder. So I think what's changing is, I hate to say it's positive for leaseholders, people who own leases, and it's leveling the system up, but for people who are doing what I'm advocating, title splitting, it makes no difference at all, because actually this makes it more attractive to the banks, who are the people we need to get money from. So think of it like that. Would the banks prefer a 999-year lease on their, a 990-year lease on their security, What's the answer? Yes.
Awesome.
So it's going to make it easier to get mortgages rather than harder. So for us as landlords, it's probably a good opportunity if we know we're going to make money and capital uplift out of the leasehold elements.
Okay, great. Rachel, thank you. Any more questions? Got a few minutes left. You can put them in the question box. You've got to be in it to win it. And you've also got a great offer there to learn more about title splits, to hear more of what Rachel's offering. Obviously, by the sounds of it, you know, this is someone that knows a lot about this sector, this niche, and it clearly is a time window of opportunity. So as I say, you've got to be in it to win it, and the only thing that you've got at stake here is your time giving up. Thanks for attending tonight. There's an opportunity to get another 2 hours. Obviously, as Rachel said, some of it she'll be going in more detail about what she's already covered tonight. So it sounds as if people have got enough information, Rachel, and they're not asking any more questions.
Okay, but please do come on the free masterclass. There's various dates to book. You can just go on and choose a date, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Right. Okay, well, on behalf of Property Investor News, Rachel, thank you very much for your time.